Chapter 311. Implanting a Bean into a Puppet. Taoist Che let out a long sigh, admitting that the immortal puppet's construction far exceeded his expectations. Though he had hoped to forcibly reshape its internal structure with the aid of the lightning array, the attempt had ultimately failed. Han Li shook his head calmly, telling him there was no need to force matters and that future opportunities would surely arise. Taoist Che agreed that the result was unavoidable, yet emphasized that the effort had not been wasted. Over the past 200 years, he had examined every component of the puppet in exhaustive detail. If Han Li were willing to spend a millennium cultivating an Earth attribute art, Taoist Xie was confident he could enable Han Li to wield around 60% of the puppet's strength, less than its true mid-Golden Immortal might, but still surpassing most early Golden Immortal cultivators. Han Li replied vaguely, neither accepting nor refusing. While such a puppet would be a tremendous asset, he simply lacked the freedom to enter long seclusion. His priorities lay with the Mantra Axis scripture and the Great Universe Origin arts, which suited him far better. Taoist Xie then mentioned that he had refined a trace of Origin lightning power from the clam bead, restoring a fair portion of energy to his core. Han Li waved it off, saying the bead held little value to him anyway, and asked whether the lightning array was still needed. After Taoist Xie shook his head, Han Li dismantled the array with a sweep of azure light. Taoist Xie released a bolt of purple lightning that struck the yellow-robed puppet, reducing it to a glowing yellow sphere. Taoist Xie himself also reverted to a golden sphere, and Han Li promptly stowed both away. 2 hours later, Han Li descended upon a white stone plaza near the high profound palace. At the far end stood a cluster of courtyards bearing a plaque that read 100 Wine Cottage, its wobbling characters always reminding him of drunken figures leaning together. Before he reached the gate, 2 azure-robed servants emerged carrying a large black urn of spoiled distiller's grains. After exchanging greetings, Han Li entered the cottage. Inside, he encountered Taoist Hu Yan, whose appearance had changed markedly. Hair neatly groomed, robes spotless, steps lighter than before. Hu Yan greeted him boisterously, claiming Han Li had arrived just in time as several jars of 100-flower wine had finished brewing. When Han Li asked if there was something to celebrate, Hu Yan scoffed, accusing him of suspecting ulterior motives. Laughing, he invited Han Li to sit. Hu Yan produced a jade flagon and peony cups, pouring pale azure wine that released a rich floral fragrance. Han Li took a sip and praised it highly, though he noted it lacked the depth of red mulberry or fire drop wine. Hu Yan admitted the wine was brewed for someone else. When Han Li casually mentioned Tao Lord Yun, Hu Yan's smile stiffened and he angrily told him to drink in silence. Soon after, Hu Yan remarked that Han Li's aura had grown far stronger. Han Li explained that he had encountered some fortunate opportunities during seclusion. Hu Yan snorted knowingly, saying Han Li never visited without reason. Han Li then revealed his concern. The Tao warrior tree he planted had produced 2 primary bean flowers, contradicting the text Hu Yan had given him. Hu Yan reacted with shock, then laughter. A Tao warrior tree normally had only a 50% chance to sprout a single primary bean flower, yet Han Li's had produced 2, an exceedingly rare occurrence. Relieved, Han Li accepted this as confirmation of good fortune, quietly attributing it to the spirit liquid he had used. He then asked whether a tree without a primary bean flower could reproduce. Hu Yan confirmed it could not. Lamenting the long-standing difficulty of sustaining primary beans, Han Li chuckled, imagining twice the Tao warriors after planting both beans. Hu Yan immediately warned him against wasting them. If Han Li's luck held, 1 bean would suffice for cultivation. The other should be kept. Should he ever obtain a high-grade puppet, he could implant the primary bean into it. Hu Yan explained that certain Tao warriors were puppets by nature, and with compatible attributes, a primary bean could be integrated. Such a puppet would regenerate like a Tao warrior and become nearly indestructible so long as its core survived, while also being unusable by others. Han Li instantly thought of his yellow-robed immortal puppet and eagerly asked if Hu Yan could teach him the method. Hu Yan eyed him suspiciously, but Han Li maintained a calm expression. Claiming only to prepare for future fortune, Hu Yan finally agreed to pass on the method, though not without demanding a price. a sly glint flashing in his eyes. Chapter 312, Lightning Bean. Indeed, I happened upon an item recently. Perhaps it may interest you, Senior, Han Li said calmly, flipping his hand to reveal a thin golden page. A pill recipe? Taoist Huyan chuckled. Do not think to placate me with something ordinary. At the very least, it must be an earthly-grade recipe. With a casual gesture, the golden page drifted from Han Li's palm into Taoist Huyan's grasp. His gaze swept over it, and he nodded slightly. Growth-bearing pill. An earthly pill suitable even for mid-true immortal cultivators. Very well. This will do. He put the page away and produced a white stone shard, handing it over. Han Li pressed it to his forehead, absorbing its contents. The array diagram and materials are all recorded within. The setup is not difficult, but you must prepare ample spirit stones. If spirit power is cut off even briefly, the refinement will fail. The puppet will survive, but the primary being will be destroyed, Taoist Huyan warned. Many thanks, Senior, Han Li replied, withdrawing the shard. That will be all. I have other guests to receive, Taoist Huyan said plainly. Han Li took his leave, saluted, and departed the 100-wine cottage in a streak of light. As he reached the mountain's edge, another light descended toward the cottage. It was Yun-Ni, Bai Siyuan's mistress. At the Holy Puppet Sect Plaza, Bai Siyuan had addressed Qilin III as mistress, and knowing Bai Siyuan's identity, Han Li had long realized that Qilin III and Yun-Ni were the same person. Though absent from the final battle, he had learned that Taoist Huyan was the one who ultimately saved the Holy Puppet Sect, and that he was among the 13 Tao Lords of the Blaze Dragon Tao. Coupled with what he knew of Bai Fengyi, he had suspected ties between Taoist Huyan and Yun-Ni. Since the matter was unspoken, he naturally feigned ignorance. His investigations were not idle curiosity. He sought to learn whether the Holy Puppet Sect had searched for its lost immortal puppet. Yet soon after the attack, the sect abandoned those islands and vanished. With these thoughts, Han Li returned to Crimson Dawn Peak. Inside his secret chamber, he produced the stone shard again, excitement flickering across his face as he immersed his spiritual sense within. The array recorded inside bore strong similarities to the one Taoist Xie required, alike in foundation, yet differing in detail and materials. 5 sets of materials were listed, each corresponding to a different being attribute. Han Li focused on the Earth attribute set, as his immortal puppet was Earth-aligned and the primary being originated from the Golden Tao Warrior. After a long while, he opened his eyes and murmured, "Infinity Sand." He then produced 2 azure masks, 1 cow, 1 tiger. After a brief hesitation, he donned the tiger mask. Worm 15 had grown too conspicuous. A new identity was prudent. Thus, he became Raccoon 11. He released an Infinity Sand procurement mission, then, after reflection, issued identical missions for the Tao pill ingredients he had previously sought under the cow mask. Only then did he sit down to cultivate. More than 10 years passed. One day, while meditating, thunderous booms erupted from within his cave abode. Han Li's eyes flew open as he rushed to the spirit medicine garden. There the sound intensified. Joy surfaced on his face as he saw the Tao warrior tree completely withered. Yellowed pods burst apart, scattering dark yellow beans like rain. Catching one, he saw fine golden lightning veins etched across its surface. When he infused immortal spiritual power, the veins blazed, releasing a surge of golden lightning. His eyes shone. These Tao warriors had mutated, gaining the lightning attribute. A louder explosion followed. The 2 largest pods at the tree's crown burst open, launching 2 pea-sized primary beans into the air. Han Li seized them swiftly. They resembled the others, but their lightning veins were darker, their power purer. Moments later, the Tao warrior tree turned from yellow to grey, then crumbled into dust. Han Li produced a yellow gourd. With a pat, a powerful suction drew all the beans inside. This gourd, refined per Taoist Huyan's instructions, functioned like a spirit beast pouch, allowing Tao warriors within to continue absorbing origin chi. With spirit liquid, they could even be further nurtured, just as Taoist Huyan did. Elated, Han Li returned to seclusion. 2 days later, a ring-shaped array 10 feet across was carved into his chamber floor. Spirit materials and immortal origin stones filled its indentations. At the center stood a golden, city-like platform forming a cavity that held hundreds of Tao warrior beings. This was the lightning origin locking array, a lightning attribute refinement array. Its core altar was forged from lightning restraining wood. Though Hanley had expected Earth attribute beings, the mutation left lightning power dominant. Thus, he chose this array. After preparations, he consumed a pill and meditated at length, restoring himself to peak condition. Then he activated the array. Golden lightning leapt from his fingertip into the altar. Electricity roared as the platform glowed, lightning arcs forming a spherical barrier. Spirit stones flared, pouring power into the array. The altar trembled. The beans bounced. Activating his bright sight spirit eyes, Hanley raised both palms. The beans floated upward into the barrier. At the center hung the two primary beans like twin moons, while the rest circled them like radiant stars. Chapter 313, Exploring an Alternative Path. In an instant, Hanley changed his hand seal, and the golden inscriptions upon the platform flared to life. A pillar of resplendent golden lightning shot straight upward, slamming into the light barrier above before splintering into countless lightning arcs that crackled wildly through the air. At the very heart of the lightning pillar hovered the two primary beans. From them, hundreds of lightning arcs surged outward, weaving together into a vast golden net that enveloped all of the surrounding beans. Within this web, thin lightning strands linked each bean together like branching limbs, while the central pillar beneath the primary beans stood firm like a massive trunk, forming the image of a miniature golden lightning tree. Wisps of spiritual power, drawn from the spirit stones on the ground, flowed upward through the lightning trunk and branches, pouring into the beans. The lightning veins etched across their surfaces shone with blinding brilliance. Gazing upon the scene, Hanley felt as though he was staring at a golden tree heavy with ripened fruit, and a satisfied smile crossed his face. Drawing a deep breath, he formed yet another hand seal. The entire array trembled violently as specks of black light emerged across its nodes, swiftly connecting into a strange and ancient bestial diagram. The beast resembled an enormous cow, yet bore dragon horns atop its head. Its rotund belly was inscribed with archaic runes that pulsed with fearsome lightning fluctuations. Even more bizarre, it possessed only a single leg, its body shaped like a colossal black hammer, with a whip-like tail trailing behind. This was the Lightning Kui, a legendary spirit beast of the Immortal Realm, born with mastery over 9 heavens' true lightning. It was said to beat its own belly with its tail, summoning thunder that banished all malevolence. As the Lightning Kui diagram fully formed, Hanley's expression grew solemn. He knew the most critical stage of refining the Dao warriors had arrived. Pressing his palms together, he began chanting an incantation. Black light surged from the diagram as it lifted from the ground, passing through the beans and rising toward the light barrier above. Blue radiance intensified within Hanley's eyes. Translucent threads of spiritual sense shot forth from his glabella, plunging into the golden lightning tree, while his hands moved ceaselessly through the air. The beans hanging like fruit upon the lightning branches began to quiver, and flecks of black light appeared along their lightning veins. The rune inscription had begun. Outside the array, Hanley's hand movements were swift and relentless, yet within the formation, the black veins spread at an agonizingly slow pace. Rune inscription was a grueling task that placed immense strain upon one's spiritual sense. Ordinarily, a true immortal would refine the beans in batches to ease the burden. However, doing so would weaken the connection between the primary bean and the others. While such Dao warriors could still function normally, their coordination would falter slightly when forming arrays. Relying on his vast spiritual sense, Hanley chose the more arduous path, refining all the beans in a single batch. Time flowed silently onward. In the blink of an eye, an entire month had passed, yet Hanley remained wholly immersed, unaware of the days slipping by. At last, he brought his palms together before his chest, completing the final inscriptions. The runes upon every bean flared with dazzling black radiance. The blue glow in his eyes faded, leaving behind a trace of weariness upon his face, but joy shone within his gaze. As the array's light dimmed, all golden lightning converged into the two primary beans. The light barrier vanished, followed soon after by the lightning itself, and the beans dropped back onto the golden platform. Hanley produced the yellow gourd and gave it a light pat. A burst of yellow light erupted from its mouth, releasing a powerful suction that drew in all the beans. Only the 2 primary beans were spared, which he calmly stored away within his robe. Exhaling deeply, he swallowed an azure pill and closed his eyes to meditate. The next day, within a snow-laden valley of Crimson Dawn Peak, a streak of azure light descended from the heavens, revealing Han Li's figure. After surveying the surroundings, he chose a broad, open area and removed the yellow gourd from his waist. With a chant, its mouth glowed brightly as strings of yellow beans shot forth, scattering across the ground. The moment they landed, each bean transformed into a towering Dao, warrior clad in armor etched with lightning veins. Hundreds of them stood in perfect formation, imposing and awe-inspiring. With a flick of his finger, Han Li sent a streak of azure sword chi slashing through the air, striking one Dao warrior squarely in the chest. The impact sent the warrior flying, smashing into the ground with a thunderous boom and carving out a deep crater. In the next breath, it leapt back out. Its armor was pierced, and a shallow gash marred its chest, yet its movements remained unhindered. Han Li nodded slightly. That attack contained only a fraction of his power, enough to obliterate an ordinary Grand Ascension cultivator. The Dao warrior's resilience exceeded his expectations. He then commanded the warriors to battle one another. Golden lightning danced across their armor as they charged forward with astonishing speed. The valley erupted with thunderous clashes. Mountains shook, avalanches roared, and the earth trembled violently. Observing closely, Han Li noted that these Dao warriors fought with the same reckless ferocity as the Golden Dao warriors, yet their regenerative abilities were clearly superior, swiftly mending injuries unless utterly destroyed. Though their array coordination still needed refinement, Han Li was deeply satisfied. He stowed the Dao warriors away and returned to his cave abode. Within his secret chamber, he summoned a golden metal sphere and called softly, "Brother Xie." Cracks spread across the sphere as metallic limbs emerged, transforming it into a palm-sized golden crab. "Why have you summoned me, fellow Taoist Han?" Taoist Xi asked. "I've discovered an array capable of integrating a Dao warrior primary being with a puppet," Han Li replied. "I wish to discuss it with you." Taoist Xi shook its head. An immortal puppet lacking its core cannot be fused in such a manner. Unperturbed, Han Li smiled and produced a primary bean inscribed with golden lightning veins and the image of a lightning kui. Taoist Xie circled it carefully, eyes gleaming with interest. "This bean carries both earth and lightning attributes," it murmured. "Exactly," Han Li said. "If it serves as an intermediary, perhaps the fusion will succeed." After a moment of silence, Taoist Xie nodded gravely. "It may be feasible, but this array is far more violent than the one I previously asked you to use. Should it fail, the primary bean will be destroyed, and both the puppet and I may suffer severe harm. Are you truly prepared to take such a risk?" Chapter 3:14 Fusion. Han Li paused when he heard this, then spoke solemnly. If the fusion failed, Taoist Xie would also suffer harm, an outcome he had not fully considered before. Yet in cultivation, peril and fortune always walked side by side. Should the fusion succeed, Taoist Xie would instantly possess golden immortal power, a leap that made the gamble worthwhile. Han Li asked calmly whether Taoist Xie was willing to stake everything on this chance. Since killing Zhong Luan, Han Li had enjoyed 2 centuries of outward peace, yet unease had never left his heart. He had gathered resources and cultivated without rest, hoping to condense a Time Law thread upon reaching late true immortal stage, so he might contend with golden immortals. That hope had failed again and again. Now, faced with the possibility of gaining a golden immortal ally, he had no intention of letting the chance slip away. Taoist Xi fell silent, hesitation heavy in the air. Han Li did not press him. He stated frankly that if the fusion succeeded, Taoist Xi would merge with the immortal puppet and the primary being, strengthening their bond but also placing Taoist Xi more firmly under his control due to the bean's restriction. This consequence was unavoidable and had to be accepted beforehand. After a long silence, Taoist Xi finally lifted its gaze and agreed, on the condition that Han Li would not forget the promise he had once made in the spirit realm. Han Li nodded and immediately began preparations. A month passed in the blink of an eye. Within a newly expanded secret chamber, a profound array took shape, 8 lengths of lightning restraining wood stood engraved with runes. Spirit materials such as infinity sand filled the array's nodes, and immortal origin stones were embedded around its perimeter. The yellow-robed immortal puppet sat cross-legged at the center. Standing outside the array, Han Li produced a golden metal sphere, which unfolded with mechanical clicks into a golden crab. Everything was ready. At his signal, Daoist Xie transformed into a mass of golden lightning and shot into the puppet's chest. Han Li sat down, formed seals, and began chanting. Yellow light burst forth as fierce winds roared, forming a vortex that engulfed the puppet and swept up all the materials. Ancient runes flew from the puppet's robes into the vortex, grinding the materials into dust that poured back into its body. Han Li then cast in a primary beam. Instead of disintegrating, it flared brightly and manifested a Dao warrior tree projection, its trunk enclosing the puppet. As Han Li pressed his palm to the ground, the immortal origin stones ignited, channeling immortal power into the tree's roots. The tree blazed, the vortex dissipated, and lightning erupted from the lightning restraining wood, converging on the puppet. Purplish golden lightning burst from its chest, wrapping it in a cloak of thunder. Daoist Xie had begun the fusion. A thunderclap sounded as a giant golden projection appeared behind the puppet. Han Li poured out immortal power without restraint, the chamber shaking violently. Stabilization arrays barely contained the upheaval. With spiritual sense threads, Han Li forcibly bound the primary being, puppet, and Daoist Xie together. The projections shrank, light and lightning compressing inward until all condensed into a fist-sized golden sphere before the puppet's chest, within which a tiny tree and golden crab could be seen. Han Li's strength was nearly spent, his face pale. With a roar, he unleashed the last of his power. The immortal origin stones shattered as a vortex swallowed the golden sphere. A pillar of purplish golden lightning blasted upward, piercing the chamber ceiling and shaking Crimson Dawn Peak. When it faded, Han Li, drained to the limit, was flung into the wall, blood spraying from his mouth. He steadied himself, swallowed a pill, and meditated. After a short while, the puppet's eyes fluttered open, revealing golden pupils. Its aura clearly bore early golden immortal might. Han Li congratulated Daoist Xie, relieved that the fusion had succeeded. Due to the primary being, a restriction was already rooted deep within the puppet, ensuring loyalty. Daoist Xie thanked Han Li, explaining that the merged power was still unstable and required seclusion. Han Li readily agreed. Only after leaving the chamber did Han Li allow joy to surface. With this matter resolved, he turned to his next task. An azure streak descended upon Gourd Peak, depositing Han Li before the Golden Palace. He entered the Immortal Medicine Pavilion, bustling with activity. Ye Nanfeng was tending to a customer and greeted Han Li warmly once free. Han Li browsed the cabinets, noting the expanded inventory. Ye Nanfeng attributed it to Dao Lord Mu's support. Startled, Han Li asked if this referred to Dao Lord Mu of Flying Feather Peak, rumored to have been in seclusion for nearly 100,000 years, and whether he had truly emerged once more. Chapter 315, Number 1 Dao Lord. You must have secluded yourself for many years, Elder Li. No wonder your aura has grown so profound, Ye Nanhua said with a genial smile. Roughly a century ago, Dao Lord Mu emerged from seclusion and journeyed to the Upper R continent with several of his direct disciples. Many of the new spirit medicines we obtained originated from that expedition. Han Li nodded thoughtfully. So that is how it was. I have come today precisely to seek spirit medicines. Elder Yi, please take a look. Ha ha, every visit of yours brings generous business, Ye Nanfeng said proudly. Across the entire ancient cloud continent, few can rival our Immortal Medicine Pavilion in the breadth of our offerings. His words abruptly faltered, and the smile on his face faded as his divine sense swept through the jade slip. Han Li was not surprised. After a moment of silence, Ye Nanfeng shook his head. To my knowledge, we do not possess even a single item on this list. That is acceptable. These medicines are exceedingly rare, Han Li replied calmly. Still, if Elder Ye can provide any information at all, I am willing to pay for it. Ye Nanfeng hesitated, then sighed politely. I fear I cannot be of help. Some of these ingredients are so scarce that I have only encountered their names in ancient texts. Nevertheless, I will remain vigilant and notify you if any clues arise. My thanks, Elder Ye. Han Li clasped his fists and took his leave. He had already exhausted nearly every channel available in his search for the final ingredients of the Dao pill, yet all efforts had ended in failure. Suddenly, Ye Nanfeng seemed to recall something. "Elder Li, do not lose heart. Under ordinary circumstances, these items would be impossible to find, but your chances may soon improve." Han Li halted. "What does Elder Ye mean?" Lowering his voice, Ye Nanfeng leaned closer. "This is not yet public within the sect, but in a few years, Dao Lord Bailey will emerge from seclusion." Han Li's heart jolted. Dao Lord Bailey Yan, the foremost Dao Lord of the Blaze Dragon Dao, was said to stand at the very peak of the Golden Immortal stage, a mere step from the High Zenith Jade Immortal Realm. He had secluded himself for untold ages, rarely seen by anyone. "You joined the sect less than 1,000 years ago, so it is natural you are unaware," Ye Nanfeng continued. "The last time Dao Lord Bailey emerged was tens of thousands of years ago. Each time he appears, he holds a grand preaching ceremony. When that happens, elders of the sect and Taoists from across the northern glacial immortal region will gather. Auctions and exchange gatherings inevitably follow. You may well find what you seek then." Han Li's eyes shone. "So that is the case. Many thanks for your guidance, Elder Ye. There is no need. News of this will soon spread regardless." Han Li then produced another jade slip. "I have another list as well." It contained the ingredients for refining the Myriad Axis pill, a formula he had obtained from Ping Yaozi. Having advanced to the late True Immortal stage, his former pills had lost their effect, forcing him to seek new means. Ye Nanfeng inspected the slip and smiled wryly. "These are no easier. I assume this is for your earthly pill master friend? The Myriad Axis fruit, Hero Fall flower, and Blood Crystal Lotus root are all extremely rare. I can provide the supplementary materials, but of the main ingredients, we only have the Hero Fall flower." "I will take what you have," Han Li replied. "I shall search for the rest elsewhere." Nearly an hour later, Han Li departed the Immortal Medicine Pavilion with a pained expression. The Myriad Axis pill ingredients were exorbitantly priced, especially the 1,000-year Hero Fall flower, which alone cost 15 Immortal Origin stones. Fortunately, he could nurture it using the spirit liquid of the heaven-controlling vial. He returned directly to Crimson Dawn Peak. With several years remaining before Dao Lord Bailey's emergence, there would be further opportunities, though certainly costly. Having already spent heavily, Han Li resolved to replenish his reserves. Within his secret chamber, he laid out the spoils seized from the Holy Puppet sect, spirit treasures, manuals, and rare materials. Lacking time for missions, he donned his tiger mask and listed everything on the exchange at discounted prices, intent on swift sales. He then entered his medicine garden and carefully planted the Hero Fall flowers in freshly cleared soil. Gazing upon the flourishing spirit plants, emotion stirred within him. This garden, nurtured through countless trials, had been the foundation of his rapid ascent. After lingering briefly, Han Li returned to seclusion. Without pills, cultivation would be slow. So he instead focused on comprehending the enigmatic 8.5-sentence mantra. As foretold, news of Dao Lord Bailey's emergence soon swept the sect. The preaching ceremony was set for 7 years hence, throwing the entire Blaze Dragon Dao into fervor. Records showed that each prior ceremony had elevated countless cultivators, with no restrictions on attendance. Not even outer disciples were barred. 7 years passed in the blink of an eye. The gates of Crimson Dawn Peak opened, and Han Li emerged. During seclusion, he had gained insight into an aura concealment technique, hidden within the Origin Separation Yin-Devil arts. Azure light surged as spectral chains flickered and vanished into his body, completely masking his presence without a trace. Even golden immortals would find it difficult to discern his cultivation now. Satisfied, Han Li smiled faintly and departed as a streak of azure light, heading toward the impending grand ceremony.